2019-20 votes 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35 under the Department of Veterans Affairs, and vote number 1 under Veterans Review and Appeal Board. I'd like to welcome the Minister here today, the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay. Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, before we begin. Obviously, we expected the meeting to start at 3:30. It's now 1/2 hour later, and I would like unanimous consent from the committee and also from asking our witness, our key witness, to remain for the full hour that he was committed to from 3:30 to 4:30. Now that would be 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
Yeah, he is scheduled for an hour. Yeah.
Unanimous consent for that?
He's already been scheduled for an hour. Yeah.
Involved in the unanimous consent?
When was that update?
Yeah, because that's not what we saw.
Because I got a note at about just near the end of question period at about 3 o'clock that this meeting had been postponed by the chair. No reason given till 4 o'clock.
Minister, are you here for an hour?
I am here for an hour.
Good. Okay. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Start the meeting, Minister. Do you want an opening statement?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. Members of the committee, I want to thank you for this opportunity to appear before the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs for the first time. I certainly appreciate the great work the members have done on behalf of Canada's veterans and their families. I especially want to acknowledge the important work undertaken by the committee recently on issues such as Indigenous veterans, ending veterans' homelessness, and medical cannabis. Mr. Chair, I also want to thank you for your motion on ending veterans' homelessness. All of us agree that having one homeless veteran is one too many, and it's important to shine a light on that issue, and that's exactly what you have done. And I look forward to working with everybody on the committee to make sure that we can reduce homelessness. I want to say that I was previously, 25 years ago, the Secretary of State for Veterans Affairs, and it's certainly an honour and a privilege to be back here at this committee. I consider it to be an honour to have the position that I do have, and to have the privilege of representing the people that have done so much for our country. Last week I had the tremendous honour of accompanying a delegation of veterans to the shore of Normandy, commemorating the 75th anniversary of D-Day and the Battle of Normandy. I was accompanied by a number of members, and I think everybody involved would be nothing but proud of the ceremonies and our country. D-Day was an enormous importance for our country and for the world, and also a day of tremendous loss. 359 Canadian soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice that day, and more than 700 were wounded. To walk these beaches with the people who fought there 75 years ago, who saw their friends and friends fall there, to visit the memorials and the final resting place of thousands of comrades, there's really no words to describe it. Together, we laid wreaths, we saw old battlefields, and we paid tribute to those who made the sacrifice. Quite simply, it was one of the greatest honours I had in my life. And with many young Canadians as well, the best way to learn about our history is to ensure it lives on, to hear it from the veterans themselves is so important. We all gained a deeper understanding of what our troops went through 75 years ago. I think it's fair to say we went through some understanding, but it's pretty near impossible to realize what it would be like at Juno Beach. My colleagues here were there too, just to look at coming up that beach. Can you imagine 75 years ago and the Nazis shooting down at them? It's just something else. But because of what they did, that's why we're at this table. For them, for their families, and for all the people who followed in their footsteps. From the hills of Korea to the mountains of Afghanistan, and now Iraq and Mali and beyond. Canadians are forever in debt with those who step forward in service and defense of this country, and in support of our friends and allies around the world. It's our job to remember them and to care of them when they return. Before I speak to the changes compared to the last year's estimates, I'd like to take a step back. As you know, Veterans Affairs is a different department than it was 4 years ago. It is driven by vision and with a clear focus on the overall well-being of Canadian Armed Forces members, our veterans, and their families. And it's because of that vision that we have invested over $10 billion in new dollars since 2015. It is a vision that saw our governments immediately reopen 9 Veterans Affairs offices, and in fact we opened an extra one, giving veterans better access for the information and programs and services that they earned. In Budget 2016, we increased the maximum value of the Disability Award for Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans with service-related illnesses and injuries to $360,000, putting more monies directly into the pockets of veterans. We also increased the earning loss benefit, raising it to 90% of an injured Canadian Armed Forces military men a salary at the time of their release from the forces. We reversed a decade of cuts in service, hiring 700 more staff to deliver service and benefits, asked questions, and hired veterans and to help veterans through the transition process. We need people at Veterans Affairs to deal with veterans when they come in. We have increased outreach in every part of the country, including a strong effort to reach our veterans in the Canadian North. Budget 2017-2018 introduced 8 new and enhanced programs, including a new Veterans Education and Training Benefit, providing veterans with up to $82,000. The Caregiver Recognition Benefit, a Veterans and Families Wellbeing Fund, a new Veterans Emergency Fund, and that's a fund that's so important. It's $4 million, $1 million a year, and last year we had to add $300,000 to that. It's something that's used. Expanded access to military family resource centers and centers of excellence on post-traumatic stress disorder. More recently, through Budget 2019, we continued to build on these important initiatives with investments of $41 million to improve the transition process to civilian life, $20 million for a Centre of Excellence on Chronic Pain Research, $30 million to recognize the contribution of Métis veterans to this country in the Second World War efforts and to commemorate the sacrifice and achievements of all Métis veterans, and $25 million to improve how we care for members of the military, veterans, and their families. There's one underlining purpose for all of these changes, in fact for everything, that our government has done over the last 4 years, not just for the well-being of veterans, but their families, because a veteran cannot do well if his family or her family does not do well, which is why we are committed to ensuring our veterans and their families are better informed, better served, and better supported. And I am pleased to report that this approach is working, and applications, in fact, are on the rise. In fact, with the renewed trust in the department since 2015, we have seen an increase of 60% in disability benefit applications since we formed government. This is a good thing. It means that veterans are coming forward and getting the help they need. Of course, this kind of increase demands a response, so we're taking concrete steps to improve our service. Our government is providing $42.8 million over 2 years, which started in 2018-19, to increase service delivery capacity and keep up with the rising demand. We also refocused our efforts, and service delivery is now centered on the individual veteran, these circumstances, their needs, strengths, and those of the family. To help address these needs, we have hired hundreds of new caseworker managers who work directly with veterans. We have hired more than 450 new case managers, up from a low of 194. This is a significant improvement to where we were 4 years ago, and we will continue to recruit to meet the demands of the veteran community, because we know that there always is more work to do for veterans. Of course, the recent implementation of the Pension for Life was critical and delivered on our promise to bring back a monthly pension. Pension for Life, combined with veterans and stakeholders, asked for what the most up-to-date research and understanding of veterans' well-being, which brings us back to why we're here today. If we look at the main estimates and the numbers themselves, the net increase of $25.4 million that the Veterans Affairs Canada will receive compared to 2018-2019 estimates will directly benefit veterans and their families. Increase in funding as a result of the Pension for Life includes $685 million for pain and suffering compensation, $628 million for the income replacement benefit, and $102 million for the additional pain and suffering compensation. All of these changes are significantly fundamental improvements to the many services, supports, and benefit programs required by veterans and their families to make a successful transition from military life. And I want to remind the committee that over 90% of our budget represents payments to veterans and their families because they're the single guide focus for everything that we do. It's our job to help them transition smoothly to life after service and to commemorate and recognize their sacrifice. We have come a long way since 2015 from improving benefits and services to restoring trust with the veterans community and shifting the focus of government from being one of cost saving to one of support for veterans and their families. In the months that follow, we will continue the important work that veterans have asked us to do, because that is what they deserve, and that's exactly what Canadians expect from its government. Again, I want to say it's an honor to be here, and I again want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of this committee and my Deputy Minister, Mr. Natinchuk, who I neglected to introduce, which most people know. Thank you very much. These are my remarks, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Minister. 6 minutes, Mr. McColeman.
Minister, I'm going to read from a card that's in my hand, and you're receiving a copy of it. It's on the back side of the card. On the front side, there's a picture. Constable Catherine Campbell, pay it forward with kindness in her memory. In 2015, the life of Catherine Campbell was tragically cut short. Catherine was a dedicated police officer with the Truro Police Service, a volunteer member of the Stellarton Fire Department. She was a daughter, sister, aunt, and friend. In Catherine's professional and personal life, she truly believed in kindness. One simple act of kindness can make a difference. In her memory, we ask that you take this card and perform an act of kindness. Then pass this card on to others and ask them to do the same. Remember the passion, integrity, and kindness Catherine exuded in her life. She will never be forgotten, courtesy of the Central Nova Women's Resource Center. On the front of the card is a picture of Catherine Campbell holding a sign that reads, "Reason to rise, one act of kindness can go a long way." You can view that picture, sir. That picture inspires me every day. Christopher Garnier, 30, of Halifax, was convicted in 2017 of second-degree murder in the 2015 death of Truro, Nova Scotia police officer Catherine Campbell. An expert at trial testified Garnier developed post-traumatic stress syndrome as a direct result of strangling Campbell, putting her body in a compost bin, and dumping her under a bridge. While behind bars, Garnier has been receiving treatment from a private psychologist funded by Veterans Affairs. That ties into today's discussion of estimates. This money is allocated and dedicated in the estimates. Christopher Garnier never served a day in his life in the military. Is getting his PTSD treatment paid for, while so many veterans must fight Veterans Affairs for theirs. Sir, I've come to know you. We traveled together. You are a fine gentleman. You are a person of integrity. You are a person who served this country for over 30 years in your capacity as Member of Parliament. You are now the Minister your successor chose to, your predecessor chose to maintain the benefits for Christopher Garnier. On September the 25th, 2018, this motion was put before the House of Commons that, given the Prime Minister has told veterans that they are, quote, asking for more than we are able to give, the House call on the Minister of Veterans Affairs to revoke the Veterans Affairs Canada benefits that have been extended to Christopher Garnier, who is not a veteran, is incarcerated for second-degree murder and for interfering with the dead body of police officer Catherine Campbell, and is currently receiving benefits for a disability he sustained while committing this heinous crime. Crimes, actually, multiple. Now, I chose not to gloss over any of the facts in this or sweep this under the carpet, because I've spent time with his parents, Dwight and Susan, both in Truro and in Ottawa. And on September the 25th, they watched every member of your Liberal government vote to maintain the benefits, including yourself, sir, of Christopher Garnier. You have the power as minister, with the stroke of a pen, to revoke those benefits in your position. Will you do so?
Thank you very much, and I know you're very passionate and concerned about the issue, and if I was, of course, in the House when this was an issue in the House, I understand, and I want to certainly pass my condolences on to the family. I think that you're fully aware that when a veteran, the veteran's family is also qualified to receive benefits. And what it creates a difficult situation if you take it away from all the veterans' families. That is what the problem is. And I would let my deputy explain heavier what the facts are on it, but the thing is, when you make a change on one issue, it can affect all veterans. I would never agree, just give me a minute, I'd like to answer the question that you put forward. I would not agree to make a change that would hurt veterans' families. I certainly couldn't be more sorry and more sympathetic to Catherine Campbell's family, and you know that I would be.
Okay.
But I think it's fair, being that
I only have a limited time, sir.
Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister, for being here with us today, and Deputy, of course, and I appreciate, and you've been appointed, I forget now exactly if it's 2 months or just a little over 2 months as Minister, and 25 years ago you were Secretariat for Veteran Affairs, so the experience is there. So again, thank you for the work that you've done. I'd like to ask a few quick questions. One is service ID cards. I mean, I know in my riding it was a big issue, and many veterans were asking me to continue to advocate for them and the service card. So I'd just like to know a little bit of how the service cards are running, how they're being launched now, and what's the feedback we're getting around the new service cards that's coming out.
Thank you very much, and yes, we have started the process, and it will continue. The deputy might add to it, but it's something that we want to do. But on the cards and recognizing veterans is something that I want to look at down the road too. There's many things that can be done in that area, but I'd let the deputy.
Sir, for everyone who wears a uniform, having that ID card on them each and every day is part of our culture. And it's always difficult when the day you walk out of your unit, your ship, your squadron that last day, and you hand in your ID card. Even that transition is pretty emotional. And so the Canadian Armed Forces, for a whole host of reasons, stopped issuing the ID cards to veterans about 2 years ago. And what was terrific is when we were able to restart the issuance of the ID cards, not only were we able to backdate it to when that process was stopped, but we're able now to expand it to all those veterans who are out there who wish to have a card. So the reissuance were happening in 3 phases. First phase going back to the date that the ID cards were stopped. The second phase is going to all of those who are walking out of the military and transitioning. And then the third phase, which will begin in the fall, goes to all veterans out there, even those who released prior to when this whole practice started in 2002. And when indeed we were doing the various town halls, regional summits, and national summits over the past few years, we just heard how important this was for all veterans, again, to have that ID card back in their hands for their own identity.
Thank you, Deputy. And I know that I was really very happy to hear from the Minister that we're even looking at maybe drilling a little deeper to see how we can recognize them even more through that card. I think there's more we can do, but the first step is very much appreciated. The second one that many of veterans spoke to me about was marriage after 60, where their spouses or partner would not receive, if they married after 60, their pension and benefits. And that's a change that we brought forward in Budget 219. Can we expand on what we've done or what the vision we have to make sure that we identify and process these individual claims? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darrell. And yes, $150 million dedicated over 5 years. And what we are doing is working with, basically what we're trying to do is work with the veterans organizations and to put a formula together that will work properly to make sure that the distribution of funds is done in a proper manner. We want to make sure that this is done in a proper way, and in fact, we're into that process at the moment to make sure that we're able to deal with this issue.
Thank you. On the transition, it's such an important piece for veterans and their families. And we did a report on it as well. We're looking for a seamless transition, of course, which is crucial. So I know we have the Joint Committee, CAF and Veteran Affairs, working and trying to ensure, and I hope someday in the very near future we'll see where no veterans, where no military individuals will be able to leave without getting all the benefits and everything lined up. So no one released before everything is done. That's my dream. There's no question about that. But in Budget 219, again, we invested, we added not only the injured veterans, but the non-injured veterans to the transition. How are we seeing that as a moving forward base?
Well, of course, and I'm an Associate Minister of National Defence, and that's to help try to have the transition a little smoother, or to make it smooth, in fact. And the cards itself, I don't have an answer today, but in other countries, that card helps us in many ways, including what happens when veterans or when military people retire. Let's say you go into the military after high school and then you're there 25 or 30 years and you come out. Number one, where do you find a doctor? And there's so many things that have to be looked on in order to make sure that the transition is as seamless as possible. Also, that's where the education fund comes in, the $82 million. It's a very valuable workforce. I was in a recruitment, they had a hiring session in Halifax, and there was a lot of major companies there. And the thing is, we got so many people coming out of the military that are trained but could use this money in order to be very valuable to the private sector. That's why this $82 million in the training program is so vitally important. As you know, right across the country, we need workers. And these people want to work, and this helps provide the qualifications that needed for them to be able to work. When somebody leaves the military, they want to do it. They want to work. And so we're just making it a bit easier. And there are other problems too, but that's just a couple of issues that we have at the moment that I'm trying to deal with at the moment, but there are many others. We are trying to make it the transition seamless.
Sorry, Minister.
Thank you, Minister, and I see in your vision that it's going to be impressive.
Mr. Sampson, we're out of time.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Blaney?
Well, thank you, both of you, for being here with us today. As you well know, Minister, I've asked you a few questions in the House, and in your response to your question, you've mentioned the $10 billion, and you also mentioned it in your report today. So I'm just going to ask some clarifying questions so I can better understand. In the budget I received, actual cash payments are about $2.8 billion from 2015 to 2024. I'm just wondering if you could explain where that number of $10 billion is coming from. And I also just want to say I don't have a lot of time, so if I interrupt you, I'm just going to apologize in advance.
Well, of course, the $10 billion is ongoing, but the pension for life, I don't have the exact figures, I have them, but, you know, all of this costs so much money. The education fund is so important. The top-up of wages, Walt, I'll let you, sure. But these programs are so vitally important, and these are new ventures that are taking place in Veterans Affairs, so that the veteran, when he leaves active service.
I know the intention. I'm just trying to get some clarity. So
On the actual dollars,
yeah.
the more dollars that's spent now than there was last year.
Yeah, so from what I understand, the $10 billion is the number that is the absolute maximum expenditure overall for all of these programs, assuming that every single eligible veteran applies and is approved. So I'm just wondering, is it really likely that the $10 billion is going to be spent?
Well, it's an ongoing issue. It's not like, will the $10 billion be spent this year? No. But down the road, the money will be spent in improving. We have wait times more than we should have. We're working hard to digitize the department to make sure that you can push a button and get the information from the doctor when a veteran
Well, and I
applies
think that's
this
important.
is the kind of thing that costs money.
Yeah, it's an important point that you're bringing up, because I've asked about that in
Oh,
the
yes,
House, of
well, it
course.
is important.
Is the fact that we are seeing, you know, and I appreciate what you're saying, there's an increase in the number of applications that VAC is receiving. And it's great to see that there has been that extra capacity added. But I know from veterans in my riding, they're seeing still such an incredibly long wait time. And so with the increased traffic, wait times over a year are still the norm. So I'm just wondering, because what I'm hearing, what veterans are telling me is they're hearing from VAC that it's just going to get worse. So I'm just wondering what the solution is, especially when you look at this budget that tells us that, you know, these new positions are short-term, and in the following year, you're going to start decreasing them. So with that sort of long wait time, I'm just trying to figure out how that makes sense in terms of serving our veterans in a timely manner.
It's not, number one, it's not over a year, the wait time. There's people applying likely today, like there's a number there.
I have
without a
multiple veterans in my riding and from other ridings that have
could-
called us
you
and
know-
told us that. And that is definitely a concern for them, because, you know, they're calling in to check on their file, and then they're being told, well, it's this amount is your wait time. But the amount of time they've waited has already surpassed the number that they're being told. So, you know, one of the things that I know when we had the ombudsman here, he talked about veterans just wanting a realistic wait time. If it's a long time, if it's a year, if it's a year and a half, just knowing that it would be a lot less stressful than continuously calling back and being told that it's going to be longer and longer.
I agree with you, and the late wait times is something we definitely have to deal with. But you also understand that we have an over 60% increase in applications. The point is, in Veterans Affairs, you never can be sure. You don't know exactly how many veterans is going to come to the door, but the doors are all open. That's why we opened the centers right across the
But I
country.
guess my clarity that I'm really looking for is with the wait times being, and I'm going to listen to what veterans are telling me, about a year in many cases. With that happening, right now I appreciate the increase of staff that have been hired. But what the budget is saying is that after this year, going into 2020, 2021, there's actually going to be a decrease in the funding, because these are temporary positions to support all of the people calling in, but the backlog is so significant. So I'm just trying to figure out the rationale for that.
There's certainly going to be no decrease when we're behind the eighth ball, but I'll let the veteran.
Okay, so
I'll
you're
let
saying
my-
that if it continues at this high rate, then next year we would hopefully not see the budget
We're
decrease.
obliged to supply the, or I feel we're basically obliged to supply the service for the veterans. And the fact is, we started with under 100 caseworkers, and now we have near 500, I believe. That's number one. But we've hired a lot of, over 700 people of the 1,000 that were let go of by the previous government, all of which created quite a problem. Is it all solved? No. But we have done an awful lot to get it in line. In fact, what we have done has increased the inflow of applications. Go ahead.
Can I just, a few of those points. First, the $10 billion is for our department accrual funding, which means that we have actuarials come in looking at the full projection of the number of clients, client base, and then we kind of consider a young sailor, soldier, airman, or woman who's 20, 25 years old, and we're providing a benefit to them for potentially 60 to 70 years. So when we talk about our funding, some of that $10 billion is in the funding going forward, but mindful that whatever benefit comes in is a statutory obligation, and every year, as our financial statements will show, we have had to go back and ask for additional funding because of the benefits are needs-driven. In addition, within that $10 billion, as the minister indicated, is the augmentation of staff. Then going to the whole aspect of wait times, right now, average wait time, mindful of the 60% increase, the average wait time has been 32 weeks.
Okay.
Mr. Yelfison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, General, good to see you back as always. There was some mention of this before, but the 9 veteran service centers that were closed by the previous government reopened. A 10th one has been opened. Can you comment on the impact this has had on Veterans Affairs' ability to deliver services to veterans?
Well, of course, first of all, having the 10 offices open across the country, it just provides information for the veterans right across the country. But in fact, what it has done has spurred the application process, because the fact is, and the department is saying yes more often now too, but we have, what it has done has increased our by over 60%, the number of people who are applying for benefits. And that's a good thing, because that's what we're supposed to do, provide benefits for the veterans. That's what we're here for. Over 90-some% of what's spent at Veterans Affairs is spent on services to the veterans. So, and also on the allocation of funds, there's never any, if Veterans Affairs and the allocation of funds is short of funds, the government is obliged to supply the funding. There's some talk, there's always a question of estimation on how much will be needed. But I think last year there was a lapse, I think, and there was a...
So we had to ask for an additional $300 million.
$300 million. And of course it came. But, sometimes there's some left over, and that's... now it's been, because of a vote in the House, that's been reverted back to be used by Veterans Affairs, all of which is helpful. But have we got all the problems solved? No, we haven't. Have we got a wait list more than we should have? Yes, we do. Are we continuing to work on it? Yes, we are. We want to digitize the process. We want to make it faster. That's what we're attempting to do. We are hiring more staff, all of which makes it better for veterans. That's what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you. Now, in October 2016, I understand the earnings loss benefit has increased from 75 to 90% of the veterans' pre-release salary. So it will encourage them to go through to complete rehabilitation programs. So do you think this provides enough incentive for veterans to complete their rehabilitation programs?
Quite honestly, you never repay somebody that is in that situation. But what the country has, what Veterans Affairs has done, what the government has done, has made it better. It was increased from 75 to 90%, just to put more money in the pockets of veterans. That is why that was done.
Okay, thank you.
And there are many other programs that they can apply and work. And Walt, do you want to add to it?
Yeah, just to say, sir, that what has been really powerful is going from the earning loss benefit 75 to earning loss benefit 90%. 90% of pre-release gross income for the sailor, soldier, airman, and women veteran and then evolving that into the new Pension for Life model, where we have been able to simplify and consolidate the benefits, and again, that's what the veterans were asking for, into the income replacement benefit, so that for those veterans who require medical treatment, for those who are going through vocational rehabilitation, they will be financially sound and solid and be able to support their families while they're going through that and not have that burden or anxiety as they go through that process. And then if they cannot return to meaningful purpose, meaningful employment, then we will continue on with that income replacement benefit, which is benchmarked to that 90%, but then indexed to the consumer price index.
Okay, thank you.
Plus
Yeah.
1%.
So,
Plus 1%.
okay, great. Now, one of the things the feedback we've heard is that case managers often have an excessive load, too many clients. It's as of March 2018, the number I've got here is 32.9 clients per case manager, and the department has recommended reducing that to 25 clients per case manager. Can you give us any ballpark figures to when we think you may be able to achieve that ratio?
I can tell you that we're working full-time in order to get to that ratio. You understand what the situation, what we inherited, and we only had less than 200, so we have now just under 500, between 450 and 500. That's so vitally important, and we're working hard to make sure that we get the ratio to 25 to 1. But to tell you exactly the date we get there, no, because we're working continually. Perhaps Walt can give an estimation, but it's hard to give an estimation when you're not sure just what you're going to face. But we're working very hard to do that.
Sir, thanks for the question, and it goes back to Madame Blaney's question a little bit. Again, with the influx of veterans coming in, that's the one thing we don't control, is to see the influx, and we want to welcome veterans in with open arms as they come in and provide them the support they require based upon their needs, the complexity of their needs, the risk that they're at. We were able to get some surge funding over a few years as we transition to this new Pension for Life model. And we're now looking at how this Pension for Life is kind of rolling out and the nature of the clients that we have, ensuring that the case management there is for those people at the high risk level, and at the same time creating a new responsibility for our veteran service agents, something that we've piloted very effectively, and that is called guided support. So those veterans who are at a medium or lower level of risk will be provided guided support by the veteran service agents. And as the veterans who are at a higher risk actually progress and achieve their objectives, obviously their risk and complexity diminishes, and when they're ready, we're able to graduate them from case management to the veteran service agent guided support. At the same time, as the minister indicated, we are onboarding additional case managers, social workers, and we've put in place a pretty rigorous training program. And as they ramp up, and I'm sure that the assistant deputy minister will be able to
Sorry,
provide
we're
some,
running out of time. If you can just finish that in a couple seconds, please.
we want to make sure the best trained folks are out there supporting our veterans. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, and thank you, General, for being here today. About 10 years ago, I had a contract through the university to do training with the Canadian Forces. Actually, I did some weekends in Halifax, and it was to train the trainers, so it was military faculty that were teaching members, and it was based on consistency. So no matter where someone was in Canada and they were receiving online training, for example, that they would get the same quality outcomes no matter where it was being delivered. And I'm wondering where we are with that today, because we had heard from different witnesses before the committee that the training that they had received and the skills, the vocations that they were practicing within the Canadian Forces were not always recognized in civilian life. So I'm wondering where we are with that transition.
Well, of course, training is vitally important. I think that would be in the deputy's line, but we're going to make sure that we have the people well trained, but I'll let...
So if I can approach this in two ways. One, in terms of the Canadian Armed Forces, and what you're talking about is the prior learning and the certification of the various trades and qualifications across the Canadian Armed Forces. Again, that question really is in the domain of the Canadian Armed Forces, and even though I know a lot about that, I would be very cautious about going down that path, but I can just say the Canadian Armed Forces has made a huge amount of progress to get certification or training that they are undertaking or providing to their men and women, and having that recognized by the various professions across the country. If I can then go to Veterans Affairs, over the past few years, and again, one of the conclusions coming out of this committee is ensure that we had standardized training for our case managers, our veteran service agents, professional follow-on training for our medical professionals, and so on. And so as a result of the feedback from this committee, we have instituted a national orientation training program that is provided to all of those case managers, and that's one of the issues here of how quickly we can ramp on these folks so that they have all of the tools to support our veterans. So we're putting folks through what I'm calling the boot camp for Veterans Affairs. I would also say to you that, and again, you may want to ask our Assistant Deputy Ministers when they come to the table, prior to the launch of the Pension for Life, we brought in 800 employees, the case managers and veteran service agents, to the same schoolhouse, where we were able to provide them the education. Again, it comes out of this committee, a formatted, standardized training program. And again, we're still learning about the systems and so on, but we have normalized training coast to coast.
Okay, thank you. My next question is about MyVac. That's been in place for a couple of years. Do you have any measurement on the uptake for that and the outcomes?
95,000 involved now. Just to say, the MyVac account is our online a portal for all veterans, their families, survivors, to be able to communicate with Veterans Affairs. And what we've been able to do is to make it a much more sophisticated, intuitive, user-friendly tool, again, engaging with a veteran, the users, to make sure that it actually communicates the information to them in the way they wish to use it. A few years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, we started the system. My latest data point is we have 95,000 veterans, family members, and survivors who are using MyVac account. And we are, again, using these various benefits that have come in. An example would be the education and training benefit, the career transition service, to provide some of those services there. They can, again, veterans can go into any of our offices. Many like to use the phone. All that is there as well. But I'll give the example of the career transition service. One veteran applied early in the morning and within the hour was approved, and that afternoon was contacted for career transition. It's allowing us to use a digital connection between that veteran and his or her service records, his or her medical records, and to accelerate the process. Going back to the question about what we're doing in terms of accelerating services, we want to leverage this digitization in order to assist our employees to provide that quality service to our veterans and their families.
Okay, thank you. We had the ombudsman in last week, Monday, I think. And he spoke specifically about women who are veterans and that they don't always self-identify as veterans, and maybe they're less likely to reach out for services. Is there any plan in terms of extending that a little deeper and finding a path for the women veterans?
Well, there's one thing we did just, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had a Women's Veterans Conference in the department in Charlottetown, and we had women veterans from right across the country attend that conference, and it was very successful. And what that does is spread the words right across the country, and they're fully aware of what's open to them and what's open to women veterans, and we are encouraging all the time for them to become involved. And we also indicated quite clearly that this is going to continue on. This conference will continue, just so that women veterans feel comfortable and are fully aware that they played a major role. And it's important that they're treated exactly the same, and that's what we want to do. Was there a problem? Yes, there was.
Thank you,
We're
Minister.
trying to deal with it.
Ms. Wagenthal.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I just want to clarify here that it concerns me that it took you so long to determine whether or not families of veterans were concerned about Christopher Garnier's scenario and it impacting them. Believe me, it did impact them. As a matter of fact, it was very clear very quickly that they were very unhappy with this service being provided to him, a non-vet and not a dependent of a veteran's family. I want to ask you a question specifically in regards to a promise that was made by the Liberal Party in the 2015 election directly to Aaron Bedard, who was with Equitas at the time, in writing to him that they promised that they would create a dedicated Veterans Addictions and Mental Health Treatment Center that would invest directly into the health and recovery of veterans. So a hands-on actual treatment center. So I'm just curious, could you tell me, is that on schedule? And is this promise going to be met before the end of this sitting?
You're talking about the Center of Excellence?
No, he asked specifically for a treatment, physical place to treat veterans, not to do research, but a place where veterans could come rather than go to these other centers where there are many other different types of people there, and they wanted a specific treatment center, hands-on. Yes or no, is that promise being kept? Just a yes or no.
Well, we have one in St. Anne's Hospital, but
No, this was a separate, specific facility for veterans. Okay, so let's talk about St. Anne's.
Can't we respond to that?
No, I want to carry on. Let's talk about St. Anne's Hospital then. And as well, I was able to visit with some wonderful people in 8 legions. They came together in Moncton to speak with me at a round table in Moncton, and they are very concerned about their Veterans Health Center in New Brunswick, which is also, like the St. Anne's, being handed over to the province. But there's a memorandum of agreement between the federal government and the province that their care as veterans would be continued in those sites, and they're very concerned about what's happening there. So I would just like to know, with that memorandum of agreement, have you followed up? Are you making sure that that agreement is being met, and how often is that happening?
any memorandum of agreement or any money that's spent by the government of Canada under our government, it's certainly analysed as to what, it's always step by step and see what progress has been made, and I can assure you that would be made here too.
When was
We
the
also
last?
will have- well,
When was the last one done?
I've asked my department to evaluate the situation and come up with the facts and just what the situation is in St.
Okay.
Anne's, because we want to make sure that the
And the Veterans Health Center as well?
The
It would be
veteran-
included in that, because there's also a memorandum of agreement there, and it's
we
been
want to
handed
make
over to
sure
New
on the
Brunswick.
St. Anne's first, if you want me to answer, we want to make sure that they get the proper care, and we're going to make sure that
Okay,
that happens.
will
But
that
we have to
report
have
be
the facts first.
provided to the committee, please?
Pardon?
Would that be provided to the committee, please, the results of that report, and also in regards to the Veterans Health Center in Moncton, the same?
What we will
Yes or
find
no?
out, first of all, we have to find out the facts and what we're going to do.
I think that if you create a memorandum of agreement and promise veterans that they are going to continue to have care in those places, the government should be making sure that the province and the healthcare system there is being accountable. Again, we can talk about the pension program. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has made it clear that actually there are discrepancies between what has been promised and what has happened with the new pension for life. Medrick Cousineau as well has indicated that there are many, especially the most needy, that are actually ending up with less, losing an amount equivalent to $300,000. Sammy Sampson with the Rwanda Vets of Canada has come up with a very amazing tool called a pension disparity calculator. It's based entirely on the government's data for computer use, and it's being shared with veterans now across Canada. So my question is, you've heard about this disparity. Will this disparity be fixed quickly, and what is the timeline to
First of
repair
all, I
that?
would thank you very much, and the well-being and security of veterans is a major priority, and the fact is, the Prime Minister indicated in the House, and the Department is reviewing this very carefully to make sure there is nobody that gets less. We will make sure that every veteran receives more than they did under the previous government. That is what will take place. We have to
When?
get the facts.
Because this rolled out on
At the
April-
moment, right now, if you
No,
ask me
it's-
the question, I have to be able to answer it. The fact is, you asked me a
When?
question.
When?
Right now, we're looking at it.
Okay, good.
But you
Thank
don't
you.
get the answer
Thank
right
you.
now. What
I
we're
wanna
trying
know,
to do is get the
sir,
facts.
Sir,
But
I want to know as well, with all of the backlog, 40,000 backlog, there was an increase moving up towards April 1st, because there were a lot of individuals who were very concerned that when this pension came in, as we can see, the career impact allowance and its supplement, they have not qualified for, and that's where they're losing. So anyone who applied already, even though they're in a backlog, they should be able to get the funding that they deserve in that regard, even though it's ending up that because there's a backlog in the department, they weren't processed prior to April 1st.
We will make sure that anybody that receives this funding will have more financial security than they had under the previous government.
Okay.
That's a commitment, and that
Thank
will
you.
take place. And that's why I was trying to tell you that the fact is we're evaluating the situation right now. I've
Okay,
directed
so
my department
that's
to
good
do
to hear.
so.
They'll be watching for that, then I appreciate that. You've mentioned in regards to case managers, there was not enough case managers when you came into government.
Sir, we're out of time, so can you answer that in 30 seconds, please?
Yes, we were down to less than 200.
Conservatives
Now-
had already committed funding for 400 more in their budget.
Pardon?
No, there was 400 in the budget going forward when we lost the election, so you haven't invested more
I
funds.
just have to answer that question. The fact is that you fired 1,000 people, employees from Veterans Affairs Canada.
But you haven't rehired them.
Caseworkers,
Sorry, we're
yes,
gonna
we
move on.
have.
We're,
We have
hired
rehired.
ours.
Minister,
We
we're
have
on a tight-
rehired near 500
Minister,
caseworkers.
sorry, we're on a tight timetable. We are out of time. Mr. Bertina will share with Mr. Chen.
Mr. McCauley, could you finish what you were saying?
Well, the fact is, and I don't want to be political, but the facts are facts. The point is, there was 1,000 employees fired. There was less than 200 caseworkers in Veterans Affairs. Does that create a problem? Yes, it creates a problem. Are we working on it? We can't. You have to start where you are, and that's where we were when we took over government. Now we have between 450 and 500 caseworkers. We have we have actually hired about 700 extra. But the fact is the demand on the department is even larger than it was then. Like the application process has increased. There's 60% increase in applications, which creates work. But then we want to digitize the process. We want to make it faster, and we will. It takes time. We want to be able to push a button and get the doctor's, the papers from the doctor for the client immediately. That's the type of thing. We have to digitize the system so it works smoothly. And that will take, when it all happens, it's more efficient. But we can't tell if it's going to continue to increase or decrease. We don't know, but we have to be ready.
This committee.
The deputy would like to add something.
Oh, please.
Can I just add to that? First of all, with regard to case managers, as I mentioned before, we're onboarding them as quickly as we can. We're also, again, trying to change the triage system as to who needs case management and who needs guided support. As the minister indicated, we received surge funding, and we hired not only additional case managers, but we've hired additional adjudicators. In terms of the backlog is in the order of 18,000. The number of 40,000 is all of the files that are currently in the department, no matter whether they've been waiting a week or a longer period of time beyond the standard. But the backlog is in the order of 18,000. And what we've been able to do is get surge funding to assist us in terms of getting more adjudicators, case managers, while we try to do some other things, because it's not only about people. As the minister indicated, we're trying to digitize as much as we can. It used to take us weeks to get medical files and service files. We're trying to do it digitally and link into the Canadian Armed Forces or link into Library and Archives. But we're also trying to be a much more presumptive approach, and I know the lawyers in the room may not like the term presumptive, but with regard to mental health, we're being much more, open to the notion that someone who has served, gone through a difficult time, and as a result of that, if they have a bona fide diagnosis, we're approving it at a rate of over 90%. The other thing we're doing, especially for those veterans who have served in pretty physically demanding trades, we're using a cumulative joint trauma tool. For example, an infantryman who has hundreds of parachute jumps, the likelihood is that he or she could have difficulty with their ankles, knees, hips, back, neck, shoulders. So we're, again, trying to expedite it in that way. What we are also doing is using the MyVac account in order to expedite, again, the whole application system. One of our problems is some of the applications don't come in complete. And we have to go to and fro back to the veteran trying to get a diagnosis. By using this Pension for Life digital tool, kind of like your taxes. The system only accepts it when the application's complete. And the last piece is closing the seam with Canadian Armed Forces. About 24% of all of our clientele are still serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. By closing the seam with the Canadian Armed Forces, we can get all of this work done while these men and women are still in uniform. They have their pay. They've got some of the best medical care in the country. Let's get everything done before they take off the uniform. So it's all of these steps are going through to see, okay, what's the trend if we put all of this into place, and then what is our enduring model in terms of the workforce as we project over the next few years?
Mr. Chen, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister and General, for being here today. I want to continue on the questioning from my colleague, Ms. Ludwig, with respect to women veterans. We heard from the Veterans Ombudsman earlier this week, and he said to our committee, I've had the chance to speak to a number of women veterans and women advocates. It's clear that a number of programs and services they have access to were not designed specifically with women service members in mind or women veterans in mind. I know that our government has talked about running government policies, programs, and services through a gender-based analysis plus. Can you speak to how GBA plus may have been used to evaluate current programs for women veterans and how we can improve those services so that women can have greater access and be better included?
Well, I think number one, it's the importance of the Ombudsman to highlight this. I think number two, we had the Conference for Women Veterans in Charlottetown. All of this brings together the issues that they're facing and what we want to do as a government and as the Department of Veterans Affairs is make sure that all programs are fully open and accessible and in the right set up for women veterans, and that will be done. What problems are there will be dealt with.
Wonderful. I also want to thank the Minister and the General for their work in supporting the Highway of Heroes. Highway 401 runs through my riding of Scarborough North, and earlier this year on January 31st, I wrote to Finance Minister Bill Morneau to encourage the government's support of this very important project that will see 2 million trees planted, honoring our veterans, our brave servicemen and women, 117,000 of whom have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and that investment is incredibly helpful. And I want to highlight your comments, Minister, that you said earlier today the best way to learn history is to ensure it lives on, and this initiative certainly does that.
You're out of time, Mr. Chen. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more.
Mr. Kitchen.
Chair and Minister and General, good to see you again. Thank you for being here. A year ago, the number of veterans waiting were 30,000, waiting to get access. Wait times were 16 weeks. We hear, I think I heard today, General, that you said it's now up to 32 weeks. But ultimately, last year, the government committed $42 million plus hiring more frontline staff to improve them. What did it do? It's up to 40,000. It's almost like climbing up a ladder and then falling down. So my question to you is, what did you get out of that? You put $42 million and you've increased the backlog.
You're right. And the fact is, there's, as I said before, over 60% increase in applications for the services of Veterans Affairs. I'm not going to repeat again, but you know the situation, what the situation was with caseworkers and with employees. We have addressed that as well as we can. We're working on the digitization of the department to make sure that we can make it quicker. The fact is, we have a lot more applications for service because we are saying yes to more customers at Veterans Affairs Canada. And that's why it's so important that this money is properly used and we digitize the system and make it.
But it's not, it's not accomplishing what you want, and so that you're putting money and throwing money away. Now,
I have to answer
on Monday. Sorry, I'm short on time.
Let me answer the question. When you tell me we're not throwing
and I
money away
appreciate
at
that,
all.
and I would like to continue. So, on Monday we met with the Ombudsman, as you're aware, and my colleague, Mr. Chen, described the Ombudsman's report card, which he presented to us, and he described it as a failing report card. And the number of items that were not completed in the past year. And some of them, and I'll just read a couple of them, triage applications upon receipt based on health and financial need, ensure that all VAC benefits are in place at time of release. Upon receipt, immediately return applications if required documents are missing. Provide each applicant with an individualized expected turnaround time for their application and inform them if the decision will be delayed and why. So why has this government not implemented these easy fixes? They're easy fixes. No wonder we're seeing a backlog, and no wonder we're getting that report card from the Ombudsman.
Go ahead, Watson.
First of all, I just want to say how much we appreciate the Ombudsman's work. Much of the minister's mandate that came out in 2015 and that we've been working on as a result of the Ombudsman's report of June of 2013. And so we have worked on each one of these things, and we're continuing going forward. Some of the items that you've just mentioned, sir, are really part of closing the seam that, again, we've just received funding through the budget, and we're working through that now. So it's a question that, is it done yet? No, but at least we have the funding, and we're working along that line. This notion of being able to provide the veteran tracking exactly where his or her claim is, that is an evolution of this Pension for Life digital system that we're trying to get to. We've been able to implement it in terms of an initial operating capability. As part of a full operating capability, we're trying to put in that kind of information so the veteran using the MyVac account can go online and find exactly where his or her claim is in going forward. The last clarity I'd just like to provide is 40,000 claims are all those claims that are in the hopper, whether they are within the service standard of 16 weeks or outside.
1 minute? Okay. Thank you. I received some correspondence from a veteran who states that he was forced to surrender in Bosnia and was held captive for 15 days. But because he was only there, the ruling is that you need to be held captive 30 days or longer. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a prisoner of war, whether it's 1 day or 30 days or 300 days, who knows what the outcome will be. But ultimately, it comes back down to the decision on this 30-day comes down to the minister and the exit. And that's, so my question to you is, where are we standing on this, and why are we taking something like this to assess, and whether it's this gentleman or others that have been subjected to this, to determine why 30 days is the set date versus 15 or 2, irregardless. You're held captive. Who knows how veterans handle the distress? What might happen to one, they may roll off his back, but to another may be extremely stressful for them. So my question to you is, where are you on this? And if not, will you get on it?
I thank you very much, and if you've kind of answered it. For some, it can be different than others. It's impossible to answer an individual case here, quite simply. And if you have a veteran that has a difficulty with this, I wish you would make sure that I'm given the information, and I will deal with it, I will assure you.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Blaney, 3 minutes.
That's good.
I get a second round at
That's
you,
good.
Minister.
We're gonna get a second round.
You know, one of the things that I found very compelling when we had the Ombudsman here was he talked about children and family and their access to mental health support, and that is an ongoing issue, that they're not being able to access those services. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that, because the concern that he shared with us is the impact it's having on the families, and when they don't have that individual support to deal with the issues that their loved one is going through, that it has devastating impacts on the family.
Are you talking about caregivers?
Well, what I'm talking about is the, in the report card from the Ombudsman, what we saw really clearly was healthcare and supports got overall a failing grade. I think 8 out of 10 were not met at all. One of those specifically was children and family having access to mental health supports that they desperately need, and he just identified that as one of the most significant concerns.
It's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed, and I'll let the deputy expand on it, but it's something that is vitally important. As I said when I spoke, the veteran and the family is fully involved.
Again, as the minister indicated, when a veteran serves, the family serves too, but the minister's accountability, responsibility is the health and well-being of the veteran. And we know that in the case where the veteran has a mental health injury, that often it is compounded when a family member is also suffering, and there's a collateral issue in terms of mental health injury when the family is dealing with the veteran. But again, the minister's responsibility, accountability under the Wellbeing Act is very, under the Wellbeing Act is very much focused on the veteran. So our authority is to provide access.
So I'm not understanding then. So this is something that Veterans Affairs was graded on. So I'm confused. Are you saying that the care of the veteran's family and children is not the purview of Veterans Affairs? I just want clarity.
What I'm saying is that the service to family members and the service we're providing today to family members, to those who are supporting that veteran, is focused on the well-being of the veteran. Moreover, again, by policy, we're not able to duplicate any other services that are provided by any other service, like a child support service, those kinds of things.
So I guess my question would be then how is the department going to move from having a failing grade to a passing grade on this?
So if you could make that, we're just about out of time, down to about 30-second answer, please.
Well, I would just add that be sure we have the programs in place for the veterans certainly is an asset to the family, and that's what we have to do. But our focus is on the veteran.
Interesting.
That ends our time for the minister today. I'd like to, on behalf of the committee, thank the minister and the deputy minister for appearing, and we'll recess and break for a minute and get our next panel in front of us. Thank you. Tight for time. Mr. McCollum?
Thank you, Chair. I believe all of you were in the room when you heard my questioning of the minister regarding Christopher Garnier, receiving benefits, not a veteran, convicted murderer. I'm sure that somewhere along the line, this was not the intention of the program. Because if it was, we're in big trouble. So I think there's probably a good answer in process of what happened. Or at least I hope there's a good answer about what happened in terms of this decision. So I want to ask each of you as individuals who are in the management team of Veterans Affairs to describe to this committee, describe to me personally, the process of an application, in particular, if you can comment on it, and if you're familiar with the Garnier application, for benefits for PTSD suffered by himself in the act of murdering Catherine Campbell, that was witnessed in the courtroom as the reason why he would receive these benefits. Now, to correct the record, quite clearly the minister, and I've had a follow-up conversation with him after his testimony, was not absolutely clear on what had happened in terms of what happened when the government voted on the motion that was before them. And I'm sure you're familiar with it because you carry out the policies of the government. And the policy the day of the debate changed. It changed that every individual from that point forward who make an application who is a convicted murderer or convicted of a serious crime and put into a penitentiary would no longer qualify, even though they were a family member of a veteran, for such benefits. So it would never happen again, which again reinforces my contention to you, and I'd like your response individually, one or more, as to the process. It confirms the contention that somewhere a mistake was made along the line. So lead me through, if you can, as the top management team, the time the application arrives, who evaluates it, who sees it, who makes the final decision whether this murderer got benefits, because he's got them. And this government decided to maintain them, and to this day they maintain them. And this minister is unaware. So please answer.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. I am quite aware, given that this falls under my responsibility, not the policy, but the operation. As you well know, I cannot discuss the cases of an individual, but I can talk to you about an individual that would have been in that type of context, but I cannot talk about this individual. I just want to be very clear. It's privacy. I can't get into that. In a case such as this, the benefits, as the Deputy Minister was alluding to, the benefits to an individual is always through the veteran, not in the individual's own right. So if the parent was a veteran and the parent was dealing with mental health issues, and the health professional would, for the parent, not the individual, and again, I can't talk about the case, if that was recommended by a mental health professional that to support the family would be beneficial for the well-being of the individual, because as the deputy said, when a veteran serves, everybody serves, then a decision would be made to support that individual. That decision is made by, if the person has a case manager, by the case manager, with recommendation from the mental health professional that the veteran is dealing with.
Thank you. She's first again. Yeah. I feel good today. Thank you all for being here today, and I apologize. Our time's going to be short, so I guess I better be quick. Can you expand on where are we going with the marriage after 60? Like, what needs to be, like, what is it? Because when I read it in the budget pages, it says that we're going to work with the communities to identify the individuals that would have reached. So are we going backwards to make sure we capture everybody, and how is it going to unfold? Can you share what you've done so far in that area? Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Stephen Harrison, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Strategic Policy and Commemoration. I can't really expand very much on what's included in the budget now. As you would appreciate, we're under the process right now of reviewing how best to administer the fund that's been identified through the budget. We're working on that in consultation with partners, not only governmental partners, but others as well, to make sure that it could be the most effective, and appreciate that we want to hit the right target as is intended. So at the moment, The most I can share is the information that's available in the budget, with more details to follow as we come forward.
Thanks. It doesn't provide me with an answer, but I understand the position you're in. So if I went to my second question, I probably will get the same type of answer, but I'm going to try anyway. We've included in Budget 219 the education and training benefit to reservists. What communication, like, if it was passed tomorrow morning, the budget, how would that unfold so that we can capture that as quickly as possible?
So the short answer to your question is it was something that came up. I was fortunate enough to participate with our Canadian Armed Forces colleagues on a nationwide tour talking about transition groups, talking about new Veterans Affairs programs. It was one that came up quite regularly about the supplementary reserves not being eligible for the ETB. We're very happy that it's been included in the budget 2019. That fix will be put into legislation and in place, and as soon as it is, then supplementary reservists will be eligible to apply and benefit from the program. So that's a near-term answer to your question. It will be shortly, sir.
I guess I get a little more time. So how would the communication, how do we make sure that the message is out to everyone that has the right to that benefit?
Well, I'm happy to answer that one too. The education and training benefit has been a well-publicized benefit. It's one that's attracted a lot of interest. My colleague, Mr. Doiron, would talk about the number of people, and I know it came up earlier, the number of people who've already taken advantage of it. But we will continue to expand upon the communications to inform supplementary reservists, not only by our own communications, by leveraging those of the Canadian Armed Forces as well, to make sure that people will be well aware of the eligibility of supplementary reservists.
I'd like to, Anna, can you give me the number of people who are taking advantage of the program since implemented? When did it come online, and how many people are benefiting from it now?
It's been online for 1 year, 14 months. 5,100 people have applied on it. 2,600, over 2,600 was favorable. About 800 unfavorable. The other ones are, I'll call them waiting. And the reason they're waiting is not that they're not approved, it's because they're still in uniform.
What does it mean unfavorable?
I mean, they were told no. So they didn't meet the criteria of what they applied on.
And the criteria is anything
6
before
years or
206?
6 years or 12 years, depending, or the program was not a registered program.
Or so those before 206 don't access?
Or before 206.
Okay. So
And the other ones en suspens would be the ones that are still in uniform. So we do evaluate it, but they can't take the program until they.
I'm impressed. That means that was a major request and need for veterans.
Correct.
When you see that 5,100 people made application in the last year for that program, wow, I'm impressed.
Mr. Sampson, Ms. Blaney.
Well, thank you all so much for being here today. One of the things that I've heard from veterans repeatedly in my office, and as I mentioned earlier, I get calls from my riding, but also from across Canada, is the frustration with the wait times. I heard from the Deputy Minister that the wait times are now about 32 weeks. But one of the things that we're hearing again is that they're told on average that this will be the wait time when their case is often already gone past that amount of time. So it's just adding to that frustration, which I would believe that on both sides is not a very good feeling. So I'm just wondering if there's any plans to change the way the department is communicating to veterans estimated times on their files to maybe allay that on both sides.
Thank you for the question. And I should have introduced myself, although I think I know most of the members. I've been here a few times. Michel Doiron, ADM Service Delivery. So you're right. And we are very frustrated by the fact that we have a backlog. We actually do communicate with the veteran through my VAC account of where their file is and of the wait time, and we are reporting the wait time per condition. So some conditions are faster. Hearing, as an example, is done quite fast. PTSD is done quite fast. But if you come in with, I don't know, a bad neck or a bad back, where we need a lot more doctor consultation, it's much longer. So we report wait times per. However, it's still frustrating for the veteran because, you may be in, I think we call it adjudications for a long time, and you don't know, did my file actually move or not? So what we are doing is with the new Pension for Life programs and the new system, it's called JCCase, that was implemented on April 1st, working with my VAC account, we're one of the functionalities that is coming, it's not there yet, that is coming, is actually more clearer more clear is not the right term, but clearer information as to the actual status of your claim to resolve that frustration. Because soldiers, veterans have told us, just tell us the truth.
Yeah, and I know that I've heard from veterans as well that sometimes they see that process is just sort of standing still, and that is extremely frustrating for them. You know, I'm a member who represents a very rural and remote riding, and one of the challenges, some of my communities have very poor access to internet. I have, you know, places in my riding where people are still using dial-up, and I know a lot of people think that's over, but it's not. So I'm just wondering, with the MyVac account, this is all online. So could you speak to the challenges that you may have with more rural and remote communities, and what are the methodologies you're using to overcome some of those challenges?
Well, I probably will never have enough time to deal with all this, but anyway. So for sure, it's a challenge across Canada, especially for people living more in the northern regions. So the phone is still there and works quite well. Our NCCN, we answer all the questions we can. And we do understand that with dial-up and other issues, and you're talking my bank account, but we also know with mental health, telehealth, all stuff that we actually use on a daily basis, but in certain areas where there is issues with connectivity, it becomes an issue. So we're not going to correct the connectivity. I mean, but what we are doing is trying to provide as many manners or venues as possible for the veteran to apply or contact us. As an example, we are traveling to the north. We go to every, and we added Northern Quebec. I actually have people in Northern Quebec for the first time this week. So we go to the territories because of those same reasons, and we meet with veterans there. We publicize it through the Legion, Service Canada, whatever means and I'm getting a sign, to actually be able to outreach to them.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, 4 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for coming. Now, in regards to dealing with the backlog, we said we started with low numbers of staff. I had to hire a lot of new staff. Now, what are the challenges in finding qualified individuals? What kind of pool do we have to draw from of qualified individuals to hire?
It depends on what level. Some are just basic employees, public servants. The other ones are nurses, and then we have doctors. And there's a different challenge for the different level. So we do reach out to nursing schools. We do reach out to people. We do have to be careful not to. In Charlottetown, I've been accused that I've probably hired everybody I can hire in the island to come and work for us. But we do actually are very aggressive reaching out. However, what we have done, because of the issue you're relating to, is trying to find the people. We've actually now, especially because of the French issues, the Ombudsman raised it. It was an issue. We now have opened a processing area in Montreal, where we actually can recruit more French-speaking people. So we do reach out. On the case management side, we're actually working. We have a long-term contract with the CICAN, so the colleges and institutions of Canada, I believe that's what, where we will be taking their students and having them do co-ops within our organizations. And if they provide us with the right, co-op may not be the right term, but a stage within our organization, and if they have the right
internships,
we will actually bridge the students into our organization as new employees to actually address that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just a follow-up to that question, when you found someone who has the right qualifications, I mean, I know it has to vary due to the position. What's the range of timeframes for training the people you hire?
Typically, it's a minimum of 6 months. Okay, the more complex the position we're recruiting for, the longer the position. But what we're seeing is, on average, it's 6 months. So before somebody becomes proficient, and proficient may be a big word here, before they're able to actually do some of the work, it's a 6 months. So if you look at my case management, I have a 10.9 turnover a year. Well, that means at any given moment, I have 40 to 50 case managers that are in training that are not managing a full component, So we're at 32, 33. We seem to be playing in that lately for the past 2 years. But if I didn't have 10% turnover, and it's normal, right? People are leaving, people are retiring, people decide it's not for them, or people are promoted. So we're always in this constant recruitment. So that's why we have the schoolhouse the deputy spoke about. That's why we bump people through it. We not only want them to have the culture we're looking for, care, compassion, respect, err on the side of the veteran, but we also want to make sure that we can train them faster.
Great, thank you. Now, changing gears a little bit, from what I understand, that VAC is projecting expenditures of about $44 million for the education and training benefit. So how many veterans do you think would receive the $40,000 after the 6 years of service? Do you have any idea of the numbers?
I don't have the numbers down to that level of detail. I know our current projection, in accordance with what we're seeing in the main estimates, an additional infusion of $39 million for this year. We are estimating around 2,400 successful applicants. Now, I don't have a breakdown further than that, but I can get that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. My question started off for Mr. Doran. Following up on Mr. Ellison's questions about hiring, we've heard from a number of veterans that they would like to see veterans on frontline services. When you were looking at qualifications, is there any extra tick box for either it's a veteran, it's a spouse of a veteran or an active member, or a child, an older child that has the qualifications?
Not childs, but we do look for the veterans,
Okay.
and where we can, the spouse of veterans. The veteran still needs to meet the requirement of the job. A case manager is a
Right.
case manager. It's a social worker. I mean, there are qualifications necessary, but we are working hard to recruit more veterans. We're still not at the numbers that Veterans Affairs would like to have when it comes to veterans. So we actually have a unit that is working to recruit not only with us, but with other departments of government and actually in the private sector to actually bring more attention to that. But for us, we do give preference to veterans if they meet the requirement of the jobs.
Okay. Thank you. And that's good news. Any preference at all for their spouses? Because they've worked side by side. We say that when a member serves, the family serves.
We don't have a program for spouses, but we do have a program for no. We don't have a program for spouses, but maybe.
Well, if I may, our focus really is with the Veteran Hiring Act coming into force in July 2015, and the statutory and regulatory obligations to, in particular, address the repurposing of individuals who were released from the Canadian Armed Forces due to injury and illness.
Right.
So that's our primary focus, and the deputy, in fact, and the minister at the time issued a challenge to their colleagues to increase the veteran representation, and the Public Service Commission has some statistics to indicate that we are doing quite well across the public service in that regard.
Okay.
I should have introduced myself. Elizabeth Stewart, ADM CFO and Corporate Services, and a proud veteran of 32 years myself.
Thank you for your service.
Privileged to serve at VAC.
If I may, on the families, though, we are working with the military resource family centers.
Right.
So closest to basis, if we have jobs, because we know of that transient. So we do work hand in hand with some of their programming to assist.
Have more time, right?
30 seconds.
Great.
Pardon me, a minute 30.
So my next question was actually on the military family resource centers. Are you seeing an uptake amongst veterans using those services?
It would depend on the location.
Right.
I think is the best way I can answer that. Some locations are very busy. I can think of a place like Trenton. I can think of Petawawa or some other areas are not so busy. But we work with them to support them. The funding is there to get the people to come in and also publicize it. We did start a review of some of these locations. One of the issues we found out is maybe the services were not publicized enough.
Right, the awareness, right.
Because there is a fair amount of services available but every MFRC is an entity in its own. Mm-hmm. So they're all a little bit different on what they offer, and it's really because of the local flavor. So, is it jobs? Is it family support? Do they need daycare? So it's a little different, but we are, one of the things that did come out of our initial review with them is is some areas, and I do say some because some, like in Trenton, I know is a very well-known and run MFRC, but some other ones, it's a publicity issue, but it varies from the MFRC.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We'll end with Ms. Wagenthal.
Thank you, Chair. Our colleagues at the Government Operations Committee recently learned that the government bargained away seniority rights for veterans transitioning from the Canadian Armed Forces to the civil service. This took place in the last round of collective bargaining. Transition, as you know, is already a very difficult step for Canadian Armed Force members to navigate. So I'm just wondering, were you aware of this?
I was made aware of this about, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago in another meeting.
Thank you. Budget 2019 provides VAC with $13.5 million to improve its transition services, and I think this is the thing, seamless transition between VAC and D&D, that's so important. But several of the measures being considered will be developed in partnership with CAF and are under the authority of the Department of National Defense. So $13.5 million, I don't know if I don't know the spread, is if that's per year or for the year or what, but that seems like peanuts to do what needs to be done here. So since Department of National Defense has the authority, are they also putting a lot of money in there? What's happening?
Liz will be able, Rear Admiral Stewart will be able to talk about maybe the funding itself, but so
briefly, the
we
funding
received
and then
13.9, or will receive 13.9. The Canadian Armed Forces have received an additional amount for theirs. What we're doing is we have a joint steering committee. I co-chair one of the committees, and we're working hand in hand to advance this. But we each have our funds, and that amount that you mentioned is for our initiatives under the direction of some of us. But it is, well, I mean, like, depending on the initiative.
Right.
But we are working very closely. I think General Meisner actually appeared in front of your committee to talk about that.
Okay.
Well, General Meisner and Libby Douglas, who also appear, I think they appear together, are some of the co-leads.
That's fine then. I won't worry
Yeah.
about the amount. Then
Okay.
that is an agreement. On the application, you were talking about some applications are longer and harder to process than others. If an individual has a bad back or bad neck, whatever, are they able to upfront provide documents from their doctor as far as diagnosis, prognosis, x-rays when they submit an application, or do they have to wait till they apply and then start to get those things?
They can apply. They can provide the information all up front.
Great, okay. The Veterans Caregiver Recognition Benefit indicates here that just over 500 people will receive it in 2019 to 2020. But I'm a little confused because they increased the amount, but at the same time, individuals who had received it previously somehow no longer qualified for it. So it's kind of like Canada Summer Jobs. Yeah, you say you're going to do more jobs, but you cut the number of hours back. So there's people who were receiving it that no longer receive it. Why did they no longer receive it?
I know of 26 or 28 cases that are no longer receiving, and the reason is we had put them into the previous program that was prior to this in error. And we didn't cut the program for them for that year, but they were put there. It was an administrative error on behalf of my unit. So when the new program came in, the guidelines were very similar. They no longer met. But the reason for those 26 or 28, I stand to be corrected on the exact number, was because we had initially put them in error, and it was an error from my group.
So does this number sound reasonable to you, that there'd only be 500 caregivers across all of Canada that would qualify for support? Okay, fine. Quick question as well. Let's talk Veterans Affairs offices. They're open, great, 10 of them. What did it cost to reopen them as far as getting them up and going, and are they fully staffed?
We'll have to get you a number, how much did it cost, because we do have that, I just don't have it off the top of my head.
And then I'd like to know as well the cost per year to run each one, and how many visits have been documented as far as each.
I have the visits, but I don't think I have time to give you, but I have the visits for every office.
Okay, could
Last
you
time somebody
submit
asked me
that?
that, I had it with me. Yes, we can
That
submit
would be
that to the
great.
committee. I actually have it
Thank
here. And they are fully staffed, notwithstanding the fact that I have, 10.9% turnover.
Right,
So
turnover, yeah.
but they are fully staffed.
Great, okay. Oh,
For today, I'd like to thank the witnesses for testifying today and for all that you do for our men and women that served. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Bertina. All in favor, carried. Thank you.